The city was loud, busy, and full of people who barely noticed each other. Among the noise of car horns, shouting street vendors, and hurried footsteps, a small boy walked slowly along the crowded street. His clothes were worn, patched many times, and covered in dirt. His shoes were old and broken, leaving his feet sore and blistered. But what really caught attention, or maybe didn't because most people didn't look closely, was the way his eyes seemed to carry the weight of the world. They were small, dark, and full of a sadness that was too heavy for someone so young. Every day the boy walked the same streets, the same corners, hoping for small kindnesses. Sometimes people tossed him a coin without a thought, sometimes they ignored him completely. But he always carried with him a secret fear, a worry that never left him, his little sister. She was younger, weaker, often coughing and shivering, and she needed medicine he could not afford. He had tried everything he could think of to get money, begging, carrying bags for strangers, even running small errands, but nothing brought in enough. Every coin felt like a tiny battle he had barely won. At home, or the small, crumbling apartment that barely sheltered them, the boy's sister lay on a thin, worn mattress. Her hair was tangled and her face pale. She had a fever that refused to go away. Doctors had said she needed strong medicine, the kind that cost more than the boy could ever earn. He hated seeing her like this. She tried not to complain. She tried to smile, but he could see the pain in her eyes. Every cough made his heart ache. He promised himself he would do anything to help her, anything at all. Some days the boy felt hopeless. He would sit on the curb, watching other children walk to school, carrying bags filled with books and lunches, talking and laughing. He had once dreamed of going to school too, of learning and reading and growing. But life had other plans. Now his dreams were smaller. Survival was his main goal. Keeping his sister alive came first. Everything else could wait. It was on one of these days, while sitting near a busy intersection, that he noticed something unusual. A black car with dark-tinted windows pulled up to the curb, and out stepped a man who moved differently from everyone else. He walked with confidence, dressed in clothes that gleamed, a suit that looked too expensive for this neighborhood. The boy had seen rich people before, but there was something different about this man. People seemed to part around him. He had a quiet power, a presence that made others look at him even if they tried not to. This was the billionaire, a man known across the city for his wealth, his businesses, and his icy reputation. The boy watched from his corner, curious but cautious. He had never met someone like him before. The man entered a nearby hotel, surrounded by assistants who carried bags and documents. The boy studied him, noticing how careful he was with his money, how serious he looked as he moved. He felt a strange mix of fear and fascination. This man had everything, and yet he seemed alone in the middle of a crowd. Days passed, and the boy found himself returning to the same spot, hoping to catch a glimpse of the billionaire again. He watched silently as the man came and went, always surrounded by security and always careful with his money. The boy's mind began to wander. He knew his sister needed help, and he knew she would not survive without her medicine. He thought of the money the man carried, the kind of wealth he would never see in his lifetime. And a dangerous thought crossed his mind, one he had tried to push away before. The boy didn't want to steal, not really. He had been taught to survive, yes, but he also knew right from wrong. Still, the thought of saving his sister made his heart race. He imagined her smiling again, her strength returning, her laughter filling their small apartment. The boy clenched his fists, trying to push away the shame of even thinking about taking money that wasn't his. But the need, the desperation, the love for his sister was stronger than fear. That evening, as the city lights flickered on, the boy returned home. The apartment smelled faintly of mold and old cooking. His sister lay on the mattress, her tiny body shaking slightly as she slept. He watched her, feeling the sharp ache of helplessness in his chest. He sat beside her, brushing her hair gently from her face. "I promise I'll find a way," he whispered. "I'll make it right. You'll get better, I swear." She murmured in her sleep, too weak to respond, but the boy held her hand tightly, feeling the thin warmth of her skin. The next morning, he went back to the hotel corner. The billionaire was there again, stepping out of his black car. The boy's heart pounded. He stayed hidden at first, watching closely. The man was distracted, checking his phone, adjusting his suit, talking to someone on the sidewalk. The boy noticed a small leather wallet slip slightly from the billionaire's pocket. It wasn't locked. It wasn't watched. His mind raced. Could he? Should he? The boy's hands shook. He felt the weight of the choice pressing down on him. He knew this was wrong. He knew if he was caught it could mean trouble, serious trouble. But the thought of his sister, sick and weak, pulled him forward. He crept closer, glancing around. The streets were busy, people rushing past, barely noticing him. He reached out, heart racing, and took the wallet carefully. Immediately, fear and guilt washed over him. He ran, heart hammering in his chest, clutching the wallet. Every step felt heavy, every noise frightening. But when he finally reached the small pharmacy near his apartment, he handed over the money. The pharmacist nodded, accepting it without question, and handed him the medicine his sister so desperately needed. He ran home, breathless, holding the small bag of medicine like it was gold. His sister stirred at the sound of the door, and when she saw him, her eyes widened in surprise. "You got it?" she whispered, weak but hopeful. The boy nodded, tears filling his eyes. "Yes, I got it. You'll be okay now. I promise." She reached out and he held her close. In that moment, fear, guilt, and relief mixed into something powerful. He had crossed a line, but he had also saved the one person he loved most. That night, as he watched his sister sleep with the medicine beside her, he didn't feel safe or proud. He felt a complicated mix of emotions, fear for what might happen, shame for what he had done, and hope that somehow everything would turn out okay. The boy had stepped into a world far beyond his own, one filled with danger, wealth, and power, and he didn't yet know how it would change his life forever. Outside, the city continued its noisy life, unaware of the small act that had just taken place, unaware that a boy's love for his sister had driven him to make a choice no child should ever have to make. The billionaire, meanwhile, would soon discover the missing money, and that discovery would set into motion a chain of events that neither the boy nor anyone else could have imagined. But for now, in the quiet of their small apartment, the boy and his sister slept, holding on to the fragile hope that tomorrow could bring a better day. The morning air was cold and heavy as the boy woke up, still holding on to the small bag of medicine from the night before. He had watched his sister sleep peacefully, her chest no longer rising and falling with the harsh coughs that had tormented her for weeks. Relief washed over him, but it was mixed with a sharp edge of fear. What he had done, the money he had taken, was not a small thing. He knew that. He also knew that sooner or later the billionaire would notice. For now, though, he tried to push the worry aside. His sister needed rest, food, and care. He prepared a simple meal, just a few pieces of bread and some water, and carefully gave it to her. She smiled weakly at him, her gratitude shining through her tired eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "I feel a little better today." Her words, though soft, felt like a blessing to him. Every effort, every struggle he had endured until now suddenly felt worth it. After breakfast, the boy stepped outside, wandering through the busy streets. He didn't know where he was going. Part of him wanted to hide, to stay out of sight, afraid of being recognized. Another part of him, however, felt a strange sense of pride. He had acted out of love, and that love had saved his sister. Still, guilt was hard to ignore. His stomach twisted whenever he imagined the billionaire discovering the missing money. What would happen if he was caught? Arrested, beaten, sent away? The questions haunted him. He found himself returning to the hotel where he had first noticed the billionaire. The street outside was busy, full of people rushing to work, vendors calling out to sell their goods, and cars honking impatiently. The boy stayed in the shadows watching. From a distance, he saw the billionaire step out of his car, just like before, looking calm, collected, and confident. But this time there was a subtle tension in his steps, a slight frown that made the boy's heart beat faster. The billionaire did notice something unusual. A small crowd of people talking in hushed voices, glancing toward him. The boy, staying low, caught glimpses of security cameras and hotel staff whispering. He realized he was being watched, even if they did not know why. Panic rose in his chest. He wanted to turn and run, but his curiosity rooted him to the spot. He had taken the money, yes, but he had also done something remarkable. He had given his sister a chance at life. That chance had to matter more than fear. The day passed slowly. The boy returned to his apartment, checking on his sister constantly. She was resting now, the medicine, working slowly through her body. He sat beside her, stroking her hair gently, and thought about what he had done. He was not proud. He felt guilt, yes, but he also felt a spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, life could offer more than struggle and suffering. Late that afternoon, there was a knock at the door. The boy froze. He had been expecting no visitors, certainly not anyone who could bring trouble. His heart raced as he approached the door slowly, looking through the small peephole. Outside stood a man, older, well-dressed, with a serious expression. He did not look angry, at least not yet, but there was a presence about him that made the boy's legs weak. It was the billionaire. The boy hesitated, unsure of what to do. He wanted to run, to hide, to protect himself and his sister. But something held him back. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was courage born out of necessity. Slowly, carefully, he opened the door. The billionaire's eyes met his, steady and piercing. For a moment, neither spoke. It was as if the world had stopped, and only the two of them existed in that small, cramped apartment. Finally, the billionaire spoke. His voice was calm but firm. "I know about the money," he said. The words hit the boy like a punch to the chest. Fear flooded him. His mind raced. How did he know? What would happen next? Would he be punished? Arrested, taken away? His hands shook as he clutched the doorframe. The billionaire continued. "I want to know why." There was no anger in his tone, only curiosity. The boy blinked, unsure how to respond. After a long moment, he swallowed hard and spoke. "It was for my sister. She's very sick. I needed to save her. I didn't want trouble. I just wanted her to live." His words came out in a rush, full of fear and desperation. The billionaire listened quietly, his eyes never leaving the boy's face. He could see the truth in those words. The boy's eyes were full of honesty, courage, and fear all at once. He realized that this was not a thief who wanted to harm anyone, but a boy who had been pushed into impossible choices by life itself. He saw the love for the sister, the bravery and the selflessness that had driven the boy to act. After a long pause, the billionaire nodded slowly. "I see," he said. There was a softness now in his expression, a hint of empathy that surprised the boy. He had expected anger, punishment, maybe even hatred, but instead there was understanding. The billionaire stepped inside cautiously, looking around the small apartment. He saw the worn mattress, the peeling walls, and the simple furniture that told a story of struggle and hardship. The boy's sister, waking slightly from her nap, looked at the man with curiosity and fear. She did not know who he was, only that he was a stranger in their home. The boy gently guided her back to the mattress. "It's okay," he whispered. "He won't hurt you." The billionaire knelt down slightly, giving her a gentle smile. "Hello," he said softly. "I hear you've been very brave." The sister looked at him with wide eyes, her voice barely audible. I just wanted to get better," she said. The billionaire nodded. "I understand. And I think your brother did everything he could to help you. That takes courage." The boy's heart swelled, a mix of relief and embarrassment. He had been so scared, expecting punishment, that this moment of understanding felt almost unreal. Over the next few hours, they talked. The billionaire asked questions about their lives, their struggles, and their dreams. He listened without judgment, without rushing, just quietly understanding. The boy spoke about their mother, the sickness of his sister, and the endless days of begging and working to survive. The billionaire did not interrupt, did not criticize. He only listened, and that in itself was a gift. By the end of the day, the billionaire had learned everything about the boy and his sister. He saw the hardships, the desperation, but also the strength and love that bound them together. He saw a boy who had been forced to make impossible choices, but who had never lost his heart. And in that moment, a decision formed in his mind, one that would change both their lives forever. Before leaving, the billionaire placed a hand gently on the boy's shoulder. "I need to think about what comes next," he said. "But you did the right thing for your sister. That matters more than anything." The boy nodded, unsure what to say, unsure what to expect. The man left quietly, stepping back into the city that seemed oblivious to the small apartment and the small act of love that had unfolded within it. After he left, the boy sat beside his sister, holding her hand. He felt a mixture of fear, hope, and disbelief. The medicine was working, yes, but the encounter with the billionaire had stirred something unexpected inside him. He realized that sometimes people could surprise you, that understanding could exist even in the harshest circumstances. And though he did not know what the future held, he knew that today had changed something. That night, as the city lights blinked outside the window and the sounds of traffic and distant voices filled the air, the boy watched his sister sleep. Her breathing was steady now, her face calm. He felt a small spark of hope, fragile but real. He knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would still be challenges, still be struggles, and still be fear. But he also knew that love, the kind that drove him to act, the kind that had saved his sister, was stronger than any obstacle. In the quiet of their small apartment, the boy promised himself something he had never dared before. He would protect his sister. He would fight for her life. And somehow he would find a way to make the world a little better, starting with the tiny miracle of today. Outside, the city continued its rush, unaware that a boy's desperate act and a billionaire's unexpected empathy had set in motion a chain of events that could change everything. The days that followed were unlike anything the boy had ever experienced. The city still moved with the same harsh rhythm, but his mind was different now. He couldn't stop thinking about the billionaire. The way the man had listened to him, the way he had understood without judgment. It was something the boy had never known existed. Usually people only looked at him with suspicion or pity, but this man had seen him, truly seen him, and that left a strange warmth in his chest that he couldn't quite name. He continued his usual routines, begging on the streets, gathering scraps, doing whatever he could to make ends meet. But every coin he collected now carried a different weight. It wasn't just survival anymore. He wanted to honor the chance the billionaire had given him, even indirectly. He wanted to prove that the act of kindness he had received, though small, was not wasted. Meanwhile, the billionaire was also thinking about the boy. He had seen so many children in need, so many faces of struggle, but something about this boy lingered in his mind. It wasn't just the courage it took to act in desperation. It was the love, the loyalty, the way the boy had risked everything for his sister. The billionaire realized that the boy wasn't asking for charity, wasn't asking for pity. He had acted out of pure, selfless concern. That mattered more than money ever could. It didn't take long for the billionaire to act. He sent a private assistant to locate the boy, but discreetly, so as not to scare him. The assistant found the boy the next morning, sitting in his usual corner, counting the small coins he had collected. The boy noticed the man approaching and froze. Something in the way he walked, calm, purposeful, but not threatening, made the boy unsure of what to expect. The billionaire crouched down to the boy's level. "I want to meet your sister," he said simply. The boy's heart raced. He didn't know why the man wanted to see her. Was it good or bad? But there was a kindness in the billionaire's tone, a sincerity that he couldn't ignore. Hesitantly, the boy nodded, leading the man back to their apartment. Every step felt heavy with anticipation. Every corner of the street seemed louder than usual. When they arrived, the billionaire took in the small apartment with careful eyes. He saw the worn mattress, the peeling paint, the few belongings scattered across the floor. But he didn't see poverty as an end. He saw potential, strength, and a story that demanded attention. The boy's sister lay on the mattress reading a small tattered book the boy had found for her. She looked up shy and cautious. The billionaire smiled gently. "Hello," he said softly. "I've heard about your bravery." The sister blinked in surprise. My brother?" she whispered. The billionaire nodded. "I've heard about both of you. I want to help if you'll let me." The boy's chest tightened. Help from this man? It was hard to believe even after everything he had seen. Fear battled hope in his mind. Could this really be true? Could someone like this billionaire truly care about a boy like him and his sister? The next few hours were filled with questions and stories. The billionaire listened as the boy explained everything. Their mother's death, their father's absence, the struggles to survive, the small victories, the endless days of worry. He spoke about the sickness that had gripped his sister, the helplessness he had felt, and the desperate choice he had made to save her. The billionaire did not interrupt. He only listened, nodding occasionally, asking gentle questions to understand more deeply. The boy's sister, encouraged by the calm presence of the billionaire, began to speak as well. She told stories of her dreams, of wanting to read and learn, of wanting a life that didn't involve fear and hunger. Her voice was soft, but her words carried strength. The billionaire's expression softened. He realized that these children had been overlooked by the world, but they had not lost hope, and that was remarkable. By the end of the visit, the billionaire made a quiet promise to himself. He would help them, not just with money for medicine, not just with temporary relief, but in a way that could truly change their lives. He wanted to offer them stability, education, and a chance at a future they had never dared to imagine. He knew it would require patience, guidance, and understanding, but he also knew that these children deserved it more than anyone else he had ever met. Over the next few days, small changes began. The boy noticed subtle differences. Someone had paid for extra medicine, small supplies appeared in their apartment, and a quiet sense of safety seemed to settle around them. He didn't know who was behind it, but he felt the change. His sister began to smile more, her strength slowly returning, and he found himself dreaming again, not just of survival, but of a life where they didn't have to fear every day. Despite these changes, the boy remained cautious. He had learned to survive through vigilance, and he knew better than to trust too quickly. But every time he looked at his sister, her laughter and renewed energy reminded him that sometimes trust could bring real miracles. He began to hope, even if just a little, that the future might not be as harsh as the past. The billionaire, observing from a distance at first, realized that earning their trust would take time. He did not push, did not overwhelm them with sudden gestures of wealth. Instead, he approached slowly, offering guidance and support, allowing the boy to feel in control of his own life. It was a careful balance, and it required patience on both sides. One afternoon, the billionaire returned in person, bringing with him small gifts, books for the sister, basic school supplies, and a note encouraging the boy to continue working hard and taking care of his sister. The boy was stunned. He had never owned books of his own. He had never had the feeling that someone believed in him. As he held the books in his hands, he felt a surge of emotion, gratitude, awe, and a hint of disbelief. The sister's eyes lit up at the books. She hugged them to her chest, almost whispering thanks. The boy watched, a mixture of relief and joy filling him. The small gifts were more than material. They were symbols of belief, of hope, of someone seeing them as worthy. He realized that kindness could come in unexpected forms, and sometimes those forms could change everything. Over time, the billionaire continued to observe their lives quietly. He noticed how the boy took responsibility, how he protected his sister, how he worked tirelessly despite exhaustion and fear. He saw the little victories, the sister eating a full meal, the boy saving a coin or two for small pleasures, the laughter that returned to the apartment in quiet bursts. Each small change built a bigger picture of resilience, courage, and love. One day, the billionaire decided to speak openly about what he was planning. He sat with the boy and explained that he wanted to help them more formally. He wanted to ensure the sister received proper medical treatment, that both children could go to school, and that they would not have to struggle just to survive. The boy listened in stunned silence. Could this really be happening? Could someone like this truly change their lives so completely? The billionaire continued. He explained that it would not be instant, that it would require effort and patience from both of them. The boy would have responsibilities, yes, but he would also have guidance, education, and the chance to build a future he had never imagined. The boy's heart pounded. Fear and hope collided inside him. What if they failed? What if they could not live up to the opportunity? But the thought of his sister thriving, healthy and happy, outweighed the fear. In the following weeks, the billionaire began to take steps. He arranged for the sister to see a doctor regularly, providing the best care possible. He started helping the boy with schooling, offering tutors and guidance. Slowly, the apartment transformed from a place of struggle to a place of possibility. Small changes, but significant ones. Cleaner surroundings, better food, and a sense of security that had been foreign to them both. Through it all, the boy learned lessons that went beyond money or comfort. He learned about trust, about responsibility, and about the power of empathy. He saw that help could come without judgment, and that people, even those from worlds so different from his own, could care deeply about another human being. He began to dream not just for survival, but for growth, for learning, for a life filled with more than just fear and worry. The sister, too, changed. She grew stronger, her laughter more frequent, her curiosity for the world expanding. She asked questions, explored ideas, and began to imagine a future that was no longer limited by sickness or scarcity. Watching her flourish filled the boy with pride and a sense of purpose he had never known. And so, life began to change, not magically, not instantly, but steadily, quietly, and profoundly. The billionaire had entered their lives, but it was not simply the money or the gifts that mattered. It was the understanding, the patience, and the recognition of their humanity. The boy realized that sometimes the greatest help is not in solving every problem at once, but in showing someone that they are seen, valued, and capable of more than they have ever known. The days following the billionaire's visit felt different, almost surreal to the boy. He had grown used to struggle, to surviving each day with nothing more than hope in his heart, but now there was a new presence in their lives, a quiet force that promised possibility. It was not just the medicine, not just the small gifts, but the understanding and care that made a difference, a belief that he and his sister could have a life beyond hardship. One afternoon, the billionaire returned in person. This time there was a clear purpose in his steps, and the boy could feel it the moment he opened the door. The man's presence was still imposing, but there was warmth in his eyes, a gentleness that made the boy's fear ease slightly. The sister peeked from behind the boy, curious but cautious. The billionaire smiled at her, and she hesitated before stepping closer. "I have been thinking about both of you," the billionaire said. "I want to do more than just help you survive. I want to give you a chance to grow, to learn, and to have a future where you don't have to worry about food or sickness every day." The boy's heart raced. A future without worry? It was almost impossible to imagine, yet the words filled him with hope. The billionaire explained his plan carefully. First, the sister would receive full medical care for her illness. No shortcuts, no half measures, just proper treatment to ensure she would recover completely. Then he proposed that both children be enrolled in a proper school. The boy had always dreamed of learning, of reading books and understanding the world beyond the streets. The thought that this might finally happen made his chest swell with emotion. "But there is something else," the billionaire continued. "I also want to guide you, teach you, show you how to make the most of the opportunities that will come. You will have responsibilities, yes, but I believe that you can rise to them. I want you to learn how to build a life for yourself and maybe one day help others who are in situations like yours." The boy's eyes widened. A life where he could help others? It sounded impossible, yet the sincerity in the man's voice made him believe it could be true. The boy hesitated. Fear and doubt clouded his mind. Could he really accept this help? Would he fail? What if the world was cruel once more? But then he looked at his sister, her face weak but hopeful, and he knew he had no choice. For her, for both of them, he had to try. He nodded, barely able to speak through the mix of emotions. We would like that," he said softly. The billionaire smiled. "Good. Then we begin immediately." Over the next days, the changes were steady but noticeable. The sister started seeing a doctor regularly, receiving the right medicine and treatment. Her strength returned faster than anyone could have expected. The boy watched in awe as she began to play, to laugh, to talk about little dreams she had tucked away during her illness. It was as if life itself had breathed into her body once more. For the boy, the transformation was both exciting and overwhelming. Tutors arrived at the apartment, teaching him reading, writing, and basic math. At first it was hard. He had been out of school for years, and the words seemed strange on the page, the numbers confusing. But the billionaire encouraged patience and perseverance. "Learning is like climbing a mountain," he said. "It may seem impossible at first, but step by step you will reach the top." The boy repeated the phrase in his mind often, using it to push through frustration and fatigue. It wasn't just about education. The billionaire taught him practical life skills, how to manage money, how to communicate with others, and even basic problem solving. The boy had grown up surviving in a harsh world, but now he was learning how to thrive. Every lesson made him more confident, more aware, and more prepared for the future he had never imagined. At first, the boy was cautious, unsure if he truly deserved this opportunity. But the billionaire's consistent support reassured him. No lectures, no pressure, just guidance and belief. Slowly he began to trust, and trust itself became a new kind of strength. He realized that accepting help was not a weakness. It was a chance to grow, to become someone who could make a difference in the world. The sister, too, was thriving. With proper nutrition, care, and schooling, she regained her energy and her curiosity about the world. She began reading, asking questions, and exploring ideas she had never been able to before. Her laughter returned fully, filling the small apartment with warmth. Watching her, the boy felt pride he had never known. She was not just surviving anymore. She was living. Over the next weeks, the billionaire introduced them to new experiences. He took them to libraries, to safe parks, and even to places in the city that had seemed impossible to reach before. Each new experience was small but profound, a glimpse of a world beyond their struggle, a reminder that life could be more than survival. The boy felt both excitement and trepidation. These experiences were wonderful, yet they reminded him of how much he had missed, how much life had passed him by while he struggled. Yet the boy also began to see himself differently. No longer just a beggar surviving each day, he began to see potential within himself. He could learn, he could think, he could dream, and most importantly, he could act to make his sister's life, and eventually his own, better. He felt a growing sense of responsibility, not as a burden, but as a mission. He wanted to succeed, not for himself alone, but for her. One evening, the billionaire sat with him quietly, discussing the future. "You have come a long way," he said. "But this is only the beginning. Life will always have challenges, but now you have the tools to face them. You also have the choice to help others, to use what you have learned for good. That is the mark of true strength." The boy listened intently, absorbing every word. For the first time in his life, someone believed not just in his survival, but in his potential, in his ability to make a difference. The boy thought about the streets, the hunger, the fear. He remembered the days when all he could do was beg for coins, when every moment was a struggle to keep his sister alive. And now, sitting here, he realized how far he had come. He understood that the billionaire's help was more than money or lessons. It was a bridge from despair to possibility, and with that bridge he could cross into a life that he had never thought possible. As the days turned into weeks, the boy and his sister began to settle into a new rhythm. Schoolwork, medical visits, and small daily routines became part of their lives. The apartment, once filled with quiet anxiety and fear, now carried a sense of stability and hope. The boy noticed small changes in himself. He smiled more often, laughed with his sister, and even dreamed of a future where they could thrive independently. Through it all, the billionaire remained a steady presence, offering guidance without overwhelming them, support without pressure. He had taught the boy not just to survive, but to believe in himself, to see value in his actions, and to understand that life could be kinder than it had been. The boy began to realize that this was more than help. It was mentorship, a rare gift that could shape the rest of his life. The sister's recovery and happiness fueled the boy's determination. He began thinking about long-term goals, continuing his education, supporting his sister fully, and one day giving back to others in need. He understood that life had given him a second chance, and he was determined not to waste it. Every lesson, every small act of guidance from the billionaire became a stepping stone toward that goal. And slowly, the fear that had dominated his life began to fade. He no longer felt powerless. He had skills, knowledge, support, and most importantly, hope. The world had been harsh to him, yes, but it had also shown him that kindness, empathy, and guidance could exist, even from unexpected sources. By the end of the part, the boy understood something profound. Life was not just about surviving the next moment, but about building a future, protecting loved ones, and embracing opportunities. The billionaire had opened a door, but it was up to him to walk through it. And now, with his sister by his side and a chance at a better life, he felt ready to step forward cautiously but determined, into a future that had once seemed impossible. Time passed, and the boy and his sister began to experience life in ways they had never imagined. The city that had once felt cold, loud, and full of danger now seemed different, brighter, filled with possibilities they had only dreamed about. The sister's health was fully restored, her energy returning in bursts of laughter, curiosity, and playfulness that filled their small apartment with warmth. The boy watched her grow stronger every day, and it gave him a sense of purpose and pride that he had never known. The boy himself changed as well. Education, guidance, and steady support had given him tools he had never possessed before. He had learned to read fluently, to write his thoughts clearly, to solve problems, and even to manage money responsibly. With every lesson, every small success, he felt confidence growing inside him. No longer did he see himself as just a poor boy struggling to survive. He was someone capable, someone with potential to shape his own future. The billionaire continued to watch their growth, not as an overseer, but as a mentor. He encouraged the boy to take small steps toward independence, to explore new experiences, and to think beyond the present. He introduced the boy to networks, to safe spaces where learning and opportunities were possible. Slowly, the boy began to understand the meaning of responsibility, not as a burden, but as a way to create stability and hope for both himself and his sister. With this support, the boy also began to dream beyond survival. He imagined finishing school, perhaps even attending college one day. He imagined a life where his sister could have freedom, joy, and choice. The idea of helping others, of giving back, slowly took shape in his mind. He remembered the kindness that had changed their lives, the small act of understanding from the billionaire, and he wanted to pass that gift on. The thought became a quiet mission in his heart. The sister thrived in her studies as well. No longer confined to fear and illness, she embraced learning with enthusiasm. She asked endless questions, explored ideas, and developed ambitions of her own. The boy encouraged her at every step, proud to see her blossom. Together they began to imagine a future where they could stand tall, no longer defined by their past struggles. Over time, the billionaire invited the boy to visit his office and experience a world that had seemed impossible before. The boy was nervous at first. The building was huge, filled with people in crisp suits, computers, and bright lights. But as he walked through the halls, he realized something important. He belonged here too. Not because of money, not because of status, but because he had courage, intelligence, and determination. The experience expanded his understanding of life, showing him the vast possibilities that existed beyond survival. The billionaire spoke to him openly during these visits. "Opportunities are everywhere," he said. "But you have to see them, prepare for them, and sometimes create them yourself. You have the strength to do it, but only if you believe in yourself." The boy listened carefully, taking every word to heart. He realized that life had given him a chance, but it was his responsibility to use it wisely. And for the first time, he truly believed he could. As the boy and his sister grew, their small apartment became a place of learning, laughter, and dreams. The fear that had dominated their lives was replaced with hope, and the city outside no longer seemed threatening, but full of opportunities waiting to be discovered. They began to plan small projects, saving a little money each month, helping neighbors when they could, and thinking about ways to give back to their community. The boy remembered how powerless he had felt before, and he wanted to ensure that no one else suffered like he and his sister had. The billionaire continued to mentor them, but also stepped back, allowing them space to grow independently. He taught them not just skills but values, integrity, perseverance, empathy, and resilience. The boy understood that success was not just about wealth or comfort, but about how one used opportunities to improve life for oneself and others. These lessons shaped him profoundly, guiding his choices and actions. Years passed, and the transformation was clear. The boy, now a young man, had grown into someone with purpose, knowledge, and determination. His sister, strong and confident, had dreams of her own, and together they were no longer defined by poverty or struggle. The boy looked back at his life and realized how far they had come, from days of fear and desperation to a life of possibility and hope. One day, the billionaire called them both to his office for a special meeting. The boy felt nervous, unsure what to expect. When they arrived, the billionaire smiled warmly. "You have both grown so much," he said. "And now it is time for the next step. I want to support you in creating something that can help others, just as help was given to you. You have the knowledge, the experience, and the heart to make a difference." The boy listened in awe. The idea of giving back had been a dream, but now it was becoming real. The billionaire offered to help them establish a small foundation, something to support children in need, to provide medicine, education, and hope to those who had been overlooked by the world. The boy felt a rush of emotion. It was as if every struggle, every hardship, had led them to this moment. Their past pain could now become a source of strength for others. Together they began building the foundation. The boy learned to organize, to manage projects, to speak to donors, and to plan.